At the wedding, my daughter replaced me with her rich stepfather for the father-daughter dance, laughing, "You'll just trip under my feet." I silently walked away. But a few hours later, I gave a speech, after which the guests started whistling, and my daughter ran out of the hall crying. That memory played on a loop in my mind, a harbinger of the disrespect that was to come, but I never imagined it would escalate to criminal betrayal. My name is Wyatt Leonardo. For 40 years, I worked as a forensic structural engineer. I found the cracks in buildings before they collapsed. I found the weak points in steel that looked solid to the naked eye. But I failed to see the fracture in my own family foundation until the roof caved in on me. Before we unravel how I crawled out from under the rubble, do me a favor. If you appreciate stories about truth and hard-won justice, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from right now. It helps us find more people like you. The collapse didn't happen at the wedding. That was just the first tremor. The real earthquake hit 6 months later, on a rainy Tuesday in Seattle. I was in my office, reviewing blueprints for a high-rise retrofit. When the heavy oak doors swung open without a knock, it wasn't my assistant. It was 3 officers from the Economic Crimes Unit, their badges catching the gray light from the window. They didn't look apologetic. They looked like men who had found their target. "Wyatt Leonardo?" the lead detective asked. He didn't wait for an answer. "You're under arrest for corporate embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering." The words didn't make sense. I stood up, my knees hitting the desk. There must be a mistake. I audit safety protocols. I don't handle company accounts. "We have the transfer logs, Mr. Leonardo. $450,000 moved from the firm's reserve accounts into a shell corporation registered in your name." He pulled out handcuffs. The metal felt cold against my wrists, a shock that traveled up my spine. They marched me out past my colleagues. People I had mentored for decades looked away or whispered behind their hands. The shame wasn't hot. It was a cold, suffocating blanket. I saw the fear in their eyes, the judgment. They thought they knew me, but the evidence said otherwise. In the interrogation room, they slid the papers across the metal table. The digital footprints were undeniable. My login credentials, my authorization codes, my IP address. "I didn't do this," I said, my voice sounding thin in the sterile room. "I don't even know how to bypass the firewall like this." The detective sighed, looking bored. "It's always the quiet ones. You wanted a retirement nest egg, Wyatt? You should have used a 401k like the rest of us." I sat in the holding cell, my mind racing. Who had my codes? Who had access to my terminal? The list was short, very short. And then the realization hit me like a physical blow to the gut. 2 months ago, my son-in-law, Jasper, had come to the office. He was a charm merchant, a man who sold expensive cars and smiled with too many teeth. He had asked to use my computer to print some urgent contracts while he waited for Paisley, my daughter, to pick him up for lunch. I had logged him in. I had trusted him. He was family. Jasper had been struggling. I knew that. The market was down, his commissions were drying up, and he had a taste for luxury he couldn't afford. But to frame me? To send his wife's father to prison? I hired a lawyer, but the evidence was overwhelming. It was a digital smoking gun. My trial was a blur of legal jargon and humiliation. But the dagger in my heart wasn't the prosecutor's closing argument. It was the witness testimony. Jasper took the stand. He wore a navy suit, looking every bit the concerned relative. He wiped a non-existent tear from his eye. "Wyatt has been confused lately," Jasper told the jury. "He's been worried about money. I saw him looking at offshore banking sites. I didn't want to believe it, but he kept talking about how the system owed him." Paisley sat in the front row, holding Jasper's hand. She looked at me not with pity, but with disappointment. She believed him. She believed the man who replaced me at the wedding, and now she believed the man who was framing me for a felony. Carter Jaden, her rich stepfather, sat on her other side, shaking his head in that arrogant, pitiful way of his. "I tried to help him," Jasper continued, his voice trembling with practiced emotion. "But he wouldn't listen. I'm just sorry it came to this." The jury didn't need long. Guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman with zero tolerance for white-collar crime, threw the book at me. 3 years in a state penitentiary. Restitution of the stolen funds. As the bailiff led me away, I looked back at my family. Paisley buried her face in Jasper's shoulder. Jasper looked at me, and for a split second, the mask slipped. He didn't look sad. He looked relieved. He looked victorious. He had the money, he had my daughter, and he had removed the only person who could see through him. Prison strips you of your identity. You aren't a father, an engineer, or a citizen. You are a number. I was inmate 8940. The first few weeks were a haze of noise and fear. The slamming of steel bars, the shouting, the smell of industrial cleaner masking the scent of unwashed bodies. I spent my nights staring at the concrete ceiling, wondering how I had missed the signs. I was an engineer. I was supposed to see stress fractures. But I had let a catastrophic failure happen right under my nose. A month into my sentence, I received a message. Not a letter, but a relay through my court-appointed lawyer. "Jasper says not to worry about the lake house. They're going to remodel the kitchen, make it more modern. He says thanks for keeping it in the family." The lake house. My sanctuary. The place I had built with my own hands 20 years ago. It was the only asset they hadn't seized for restitution because it was in a separate holding. Jasper was living there. He was remodeling my life while I rotted in a cage. If you have ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you invited into your home, you know that pain changes a man. It hardens you. If you understand that sometimes silence speaks louder than screaming, and that patience is a weapon, please subscribe to this channel. It's a small gesture, but it tells me you stand with the truth. That message was the turning point. Before that, I was mourning my life. After that, I was planning my future. The grief evaporated, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I stopped being a victim and started being an auditor again. I realized Jasper's mistake. He assumed that because I was old, I was obsolete. He assumed that because I was kind, I was weak. He forgot that I spent 40 years analyzing complex systems and finding the one loose bolt that could bring the whole structure down. I requested access to the law library. I didn't study criminal appeals. I studied property law, trust funds, and forensic accounting. I needed to understand the machinery of my own destruction so I could reverse the gears. I stopped engaging with the other inmates in the yard. I sat in the corner with a notebook, mapping out timelines. Jasper's sudden influx of cash, the transfer dates, the digital logs. I built a mental model of the crime, piece by piece. I wasn't just passing time, I was building a case file. My cellmate was a man named Bricks. He was in for racketeering, an old-school operator who ran numbers for the mob in the 90s. He was 60, bald, and had eyes that had seen everything. He watched me scribbling in my notebook for weeks before he spoke. "You're not writing an appeal, are you, Professor?" he asked one night. "No," I said, not looking up. I'm designing a demolition. Bricks laughed, a dry, rasping sound. The best demolitions take time. You rush it, you blow yourself up. You wait, let the gas leak fill the room, and then one match. Bricks became an unexpected mentor. He didn't know about computers, but he knew about leverage. He taught me how to find the pressure points in a man's life. Every crook gets greedy, Bricks told me. They get comfortable. That's when they leave the door unlocked. I listened. I learned. And I waited. Jasper tried to visit me. Once a month, like clockwork. The request forms would come in. Visitor, Jasper Vance. He wanted to see me. Why? Guilt? Or did he want to gloat? Maybe he wanted to check if I was breaking, if I suspected anything. Every time I wrote refused in bold black ink. I didn't want him to see me. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of my anger or the comfort of my forgiveness. I wanted him to wonder. I wanted silence to be the only feedback he got from inmate 8942. Paisley tried to visit once. 3 months in, I refused her too. That was harder. It broke my heart. But I knew if I saw her, I might crack. I might scream the truth at her, and she wouldn't believe me. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed to be the engineer who presents the data, not the father who cries, "It wasn't me." So I let them sit in the silence. I let Jasper get comfortable in my lake house. I let him think he had won. 6 months in, I found my weapon. Or rather, Bricks found him for me. There was a guard, Officer Miller, who had a gambling problem and a soft spot for Bricks. Through Miller, I managed to get a message to the outside, to a private investigator named Harlan. Harlan was expensive, the kind of guy who charged by the hour and didn't ask moral questions. I had a small stash of savings that the government hadn't touched. An old rainy day fund in a credit union I hadn't used in a decade. I drained it to pay Harlan's retainer. My instructions were simple. Follow the money. Not the money Jasper stole from me. He's buried that. Follow his debts. Find out who he owed before the arrest. Harlan wasn't a lawyer. He was a bloodhound. He didn't care about admissible evidence. He cared about facts. And facts were what I was starving for. The reports came back slowly, smuggled in through legal mail disguised as case research. Harlan was good. It turned out Jasper hadn't just been struggling. He had been drowning. He had leveraged himself to the hilt, trying to become a venture capitalist. He had borrowed money from hard men to invest in a tech startup that vaporized overnight. He owed $300,000 to loan sharks in Portland. The timeline matched perfectly. The debts were due the same week the money disappeared from my firm. And 2 weeks after I was arrested, Jasper paid off every cent, in cash. The narrative Jasper spun in court, that I was greedy, crumbled against the math. I had no debts. I had a paid-off house and a modest lifestyle. Jasper was the one with the wolf at the door. I sat on my bunk, reading the report, feeling a cold satisfaction. The foundation of his lie was exposed. Now, I just needed to bring the rest of the house down. But Jasper couldn't have done it alone. He was a salesman, not a coder. He didn't know the back end of my firm's accounting software. He needed a key. I went back to the transfer logs in my memory. The authorization required 2 signatures, mine, which he stole, and a countersign from the finance VP. Valerie. Valerie was a woman I had worked with for 15 years. We had shared lunches. I had attended her daughter's christening. I asked Harlan to dig into Valerie. 2 weeks later, the file arrived. Valerie had received a consulting fee of $50,000 from a shell company in the Cayman Islands 3 days after my arrest. The shell company was linked to an LLC registered to Jasper Vance. She had sold me out for 50 grand. That was the price of my life. $50,000. It was pathetic. It was infuriating. But it was also the weak link I needed. I had the criminal case mapped out, but I wanted more than exoneration. I wanted justice. I wanted Jasper to feel the loss I had felt. I turned my attention to the lake house. Jasper thought it was his. He was living there, remodeling it, playing the lord of the manor. But he had forgotten, or perhaps never bothered to check, the fine print of the deed. Years ago, when my grandson Leo was born, I had placed the lake house into an irrevocable trust. I wasn't the owner, I was the trustee. The beneficiary was Leo. I spent weeks in the law library drafting documents. There was a clause in the trust. If the trustee is incapacitated or incarcerated, a temporary successor trustee can be appointed to manage the asset. But more importantly, the trust explicitly forbade unauthorized occupants, who were not the direct beneficiary or their legal guardian if the guardian was acting against the beneficiary's interest. By living there rent-free and spending trust assets on remodeling that actually devalued the historic property, Jasper was violating his fiduciary duty to his own stepson. I drafted a motion to appoint a professional third-party trustee, a shark of a lawyer named Elara, recommended by Brix's network. I signed the papers and sent them out. As my release date approached, I got out early for good behavior and overcrowding. Jasper started to panic. Harlan reported that Jasper was trying to file for title transfer on the lake house. He was trying to claim it under adverse possession, arguing he had maintained it while I was gone. He was clumsy. He was rushing. He sensed the shadow looming over him. Elara blocked his filing with a single motion. She cited the trust. Jasper must have been blindsided. He didn't know I was making moves. He thought I was just a broken old man staring at a wall. I could picture him pacing the floors of my house, yelling at lawyers on the phone, realizing the ground was shifting beneath his feet. The day I was released, the sky was a bruised purple, heavy with rain. The air smelled of wet asphalt and pine needles. The smell of freedom. I didn't call Paisley. I didn't call a cab. Elara was waiting for me in a silver sedan. She handed me a suit she had bought with the last of my funds. I changed in the back seat of the car. I wasn't going to face him in prison grays. "Everything is ready?" I asked. "Sheriff deputies are on standby," Elara said, her eyes sharp. "The IRS dossier has been submitted. The SEC has the files on the insider trading Harlan found. It's a full spread, Wyatt." "Good," I said. "Let's go home." We didn't go to the lake house yet. We went to a meeting point Jasper had insisted on. He wanted to pick me up. He wanted to control the narrative from minute one. He was waiting in the parking lot of a diner near the highway, leaning against his leased Mercedes. He looked older. Stress had thinned his hair. When he saw me, he put on that plastic smile. "Wyatt," he called out, opening his arms. "Welcome back. We've been so worried." I stopped 5 feet from him. I didn't extend my hand. "Cut the act, Jasper." His smile faltered. "I know you're upset, Wyatt. Prison changes people. But we're family. Paisley wants to see you. We have a room ready for you at the house. The guest room." "The guest room," I repeated. "In my own house?" "Well, legally it's complicated, but we're taking care of it," he said dismissively. "Just get in the car." "I know about the $300,000, Jasper," I said softly. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a ghost. "What?" The loan sharks in Portland. The debt you paid off 2 weeks after I was framed. I know about Valerie's $50,000 cut. I have the bank records. Jasper took a step back, hitting his car door. You can't prove any of that. You're a convicted felon. No one will listen to you. The IRS listens to everyone, I said, especially when you hand them a complete audit trail of tax evasion and money laundering. He started to shake. You didn't. It's already done. But that's later. Right now, we have a housing issue. I nodded to Alara, who stepped out of her car. This is Alara, the new trustee for the Leo Jaden Trust. Trustee? Jasper stammered. You're being evicted, Jasper, I said. Right now. You can't evict me. I've lived there for 2 years. I have rights. You have a notice to vacate for misappropriation of trust assets, Alara said, handing him a thick envelope. The sheriff is meeting us at the property to ensure the locks are changed. You have 2 hours to remove your personal effects. Jasper drove to the lake house like a maniac, with us following close behind. When we pulled into the gravel driveway, the sheriff's cruiser was already there. The lights were flashing, cutting through the gloom. Paisley was on the porch, looking terrified. Carter Jaden, the stepfather, was there too, looking confused. Jasper jumped out of his car. Tell them, Paisley. Tell them this is our house. I stepped out of Alara's car. Paisley saw me and froze. Dad? Hello, Paisley, I said. Dad, what are you doing? Why are the police here? She looked from me to Jasper. Ask your husband, I said. Ask him how he paid off his gambling debts 3 years ago. Ask him why he framed me to save his own skin. That's a lie, Jasper screamed. He's senile. He's trying to ruin us. I pulled a file from Alara's briefcase. Here are the transcripts, Paisley, Valerie confessed. She cut a deal with the district attorney yesterday. She told them everything. Jasper planned it. He used my computer. He stole the money. Paisley took the file. Her hands were shaking. She read the first page, then the second. She looked up at Jasper, horror dawning in her eyes. You said Dad was confused, she whispered. You said he made a mistake. He's lying, Paisley. Jasper grabbed her arm. She pulled away violently. Don't touch me, she hissed. The sheriff stepped forward. Mr. Vance, I need you to step away from the residence. You are trespassing. This is my home, Jasper roared, losing all control. He looked at me with pure hatred. I should have let you rot in there. You tried? I said calmly. But you forgot one thing, Jasper. You're a salesman. I'm an auditor. You look at the surface, I look at the structure, and your structure was rotten from day one. Jasper turned to Carter Jaden. Carter, do something. You have money. Fix this. Carter Jaden looked at the sheriff, then at the file in Paisley's hand. He stepped back. I don't get involved in fraud, son. You're on your own. It was over. The sheriff escorted Jasper into the house to pack a bag, watching him like a hawk. I stood on the driveway, the rain soaking my suit, feeling the weight of the last 3 years lift off my shoulders. The aftermath was swift and brutal. With Valerie's testimony and my dossier, the DA reopened my case. My conviction was vacated within a month. My record was scrubbed clean. Jasper wasn't so lucky. The federal investigation for wire fraud and the state charges for perjury and embezzlement landed on him like a sledgehammer. He pleaded guilty to avoid a 20-year sentence, taking 8 years instead. Paisley filed for divorce the day after the eviction. She came to my small condo. I didn't move back into the lake house immediately. It had too many bad memories. and she cried for hours. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she sobbed. "I should have known. I should have trusted you." "You were protecting your husband," I said, handing her a tissue. "I don't blame you for loyalty. I blame you for blindness. But we can fix that." It took time. Trust is like a building. Once it collapses, you can't just glue it back together. You have to clear the rubble and pour a new foundation. 6 months later, I was back at the lake house. I had stripped out Jasper's gaudy, modern renovations and restored the original wood. It smelled like cedar and safety again. I was sitting on the porch, looking out at the water. My grandson, Leo, sat across from me. He was 10 now, sharp as a tack. We had a chessboard between us. "Grandpa," Leo said, moving his knight, "why did you let him take the queen earlier? You lost points." "I sacrificed the queen to open up the king," I explained. "Sometimes, Leo, you have to lose something valuable to win the game. You have to take a hit to expose the other player's weakness." "Checkmate," Leo said, slamming his rook down with a grin. I smiled. "Good job, kid." I looked at the water. I had lost 3 years of my life. I had lost friends. I had lost my innocence. But I had my name back. I had my daughter back. And I had exposed a predator who would have eventually destroyed Leo's future. Justice isn't something that is given to you. It's something you have to build, brick by brick, while everyone else is telling you to give up. If you believe that justice is worth fighting for, no matter the cost, subscribe to this channel. We are building a community here, one story at a time. Justice is rare, so when you see it, hold on to it. My daughter replaced me at her wedding because she thought I was outdated. She thought I was just an old man who would trip under her feet. She was right about one thing. I am old. But she forgot that old roots run deep, and they are the hardest things to kill.